This meeting of the Margate Planning Board is called to order. Please rise for the flag salute. Attention and salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Tom Collins.
Here.
Clem Osleski. Mike Richmond.
Here.
Jim Galantino.
Here.
Margaret Gubernalti.
Here.
Mike Cristaldi.
Here.
Craig Palmisano.
It's got the floats.
David Carter.
Here.
Despina Hess.
Here.
Remy Pelosi. Joe DiGirolamo.
Here.
Rich Patterson.
Here. This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets. I'd like to hear a motion to approve the minutes of September 22nd, 2016.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I'd like to hear a motion for approval of resolutions and decisions. Number 35, 2016, Keith Creed. Number 36, 2016, Gail Saline. Number 37, 2016, Bruno and Catherine Dury. Number 38, 2016, Jim Silva. Number 39, 2016, Thomas R. Collins, Jr.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. First case, Fred Kalin, 7600 Ventnor Avenue, Block 103.01, Lot 22, in the S25 district, to grant a C variance for relief for building height, front yard setbacks to porch and buildings, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied.
Roger D. McLaurin. I do. Thank you, Board Chairman, Board members. My report is dated October 25th, 2016. Background, the applicant is seeking the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to construct a new house that would exceed permitted building height, front yard setbacks to porch as requested. The location is at the south corner of Brunswick Avenue and Ventnor Avenue. Existing topographic elevations range from 6.55 to 7.7 NAVD88 on the site. Existing gutter grades range from 5.7 to 6.07 NAVD88. The variance required are front yard setbacks to the porch from Brunswick Avenue, whereas 9.1 feet is calculated average and 8 feet is proposed. Front yard setbacks to building from Ventnor Avenue, whereas 13 feet is calculated average and 10 feet is proposed. Building height, which qualifies as a C variance, whereas 28 feet from BFE plus freeboard is required maximum and 29 feet is proposed. In addition to that, the front yard landscape area, whereas 60% is required minimum, 55% exists, and 46% is proposed. No waivers have been requested. My comments are as follows. The extra foot of height appears to be driven by the desire to have a 9-foot high ceiling on the first floor. Due to ordinance requirements, the driveways will be relocated from Ventnor Avenue to Brunswick Avenue, pushing the house towards Ventnor Avenue, thereby possibly triggering the front yard setback variances. The BFE plus freeboard should be elevation 12, NAVD, not 11. That has no bearing on the height. The first floor elevation will be about 4.5 feet from grade, presuming no major regrading is proposed. The existing public right-of-way is entirely concrete. Both elevations fronting the street look like front facades. I suggest that perhaps an additional architectural feature be added to the rear of the Ventnor Avenue facade. Applicant has indicated all landscaping requirements will be met. other than the front yard landscape variance. The driveway is 10 feet wide and nearly on the property line. It indicates 3 spaces to be stacked. Has any consideration been given to have the garage is below the structure? That's just a rhetorical question. Recommendations. The variances being sought require testimony from the applicant to satisfy both the C1 and C2 criteria where appropriate. In my opinion, scratch out recommendation B. That's supposed to be deleted. If the board finds the testimony provides evidence that supports the variances, then I would recommend the below recommendations, if not already done, be a condition of approval. D, E, F, and G. One of them is the governor strip should be returned to grass instead of concrete. 2 street trees along Ventnor Avenue shall be planted within the planting strip. The street trees along Brunswick Avenue shall be planted behind the sidewalk to avoid conflicts with the overhead utilities. In addition to that, item number G, the gas meter shall not be located on the side where the driveway is located. And the condition of any approval shall be on the application receiving all required permits. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. McLarnon. Eric Goldstein on behalf of the applicant. With me this evening, Fred and Sue Kalin. To the extent that the board wishes to hear from them, we can have them sworn, but I didn't plan on putting them on tonight. Mark Zawacki, licensed registered architect in the state of New Jersey, is our expert witness to give testimony. By way of background, just going through Mr. McLarnon's report, on the variances requested, we're going to comply with the front yard landscape area, so we're not going to be putting on any testimony regarding that. We're strictly going to be looking for the front yard setbacks to Brunswick.
Is it hard to understand? Yeah, I'm going to ask him so.
Is everything on? Do you have anyone down here?
Eric, would you slow down a little bit? It's very hard to understand you. I think it must be the system tonight.
Okay. So, Mr. Zawacki just clarified something, but we don't believe we'll be needing a front yard landscape area variance. We will, however, be going in for front yard to the porch on Brunswick, front yard to the building on Ventnor Avenue. As Mr. McLarnon pointed out, the movement of the driveway, which is now on Ventnor Avenue, over to Brunswick, pushes the house closer to Ventnor Avenue, and then also building height for 1 extra foot. There will be 9-foot ceilings, as Mr. McLarnon points out in his report, on the first floor. The remaining floor heights will just be standard. We're not looking for anything to make the floor to ceiling heights any higher. So having said that, Mr. McLarnon's report is also correct that we tried to design a house that would look similar from Ventnor Avenue as it does from Brunswick. Brunswick is the 4th street into Margate from Ventnor, and this is a through street. We're trying to keep all the decorative architectural elements that would be present on the front of the house on both sides, so the house looks like it should blend into the neighborhood. Even though the front door will be on Brunswick, it'll look like a front from Ventnor. Having said that, I'd like to swear Mr. Zawacki in and get his qualifications as an expert in the field of architecture.
Just state your name for the record.
My name is Mark Zawacki. Right one. Yes, I do.
Mr. Zawacki, you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you've appeared before this board and other boards on numerous occasions, correct?
Yes, I have.
Mr. Bergman, unless the board has an objection, I'd like to have his qualifications accepted as an expert in the field of architecture.
The chairman accepted it.
Patterson. Mr. Zawacki, would you walk us through the plan that you've put together, noting the variances we're requesting and the architectural design, both from Brunswick Avenue and from Ventnor Avenue?
Okay. Of course, one of the dilemmas here is that there's only 2 houses on Ventnor Avenue. There's only 2 houses on Ventnor Avenue. With the adjacent property, the average setback becomes 13 feet, whereas if we had more houses, of course, that would probably be reduced because we're stuck with the 13 feet from the adjacent lot. 5 feet is minimum in that area. We're going to 10 feet, so we've made a compromise. So one of the setbacks would be the Ventnor Avenue side. And if you look at the street, elevation, you can see that there's only one house adjacent to this property, which dictates the setback. If you look down the block, you can see that there are houses that are closer on the adjacent block.
And the driveway is being relocated from Ventnor Avenue to Brunswick, correct?
That's correct.
And the fact that the driveway will now be on the Brunswick side, the house is pushed closer to Ventnor Avenue, correct?
It's a combination of things, because if I had to put a driveway off Atlantic Avenue, I'd lose too much building. Wouldn't be Ventnor Avenue, it wouldn't be feasible. Okay, so that was really the dictating part of where the location of the driveway should be, and also not having egress and ingress to Ventnor Avenue.
In your professional opinion as a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, do you see any detriment associated with the house being pushed closer to Ventnor Avenue?
Absolutely not. There's houses that are closer.
And the minimum setback in Margate for homes along Ventnor Avenue will be 5 feet, correct?
That's correct.
And the setback from Ventnor Avenue to the principal structure is how far?
It's 10 feet.
Okay, so we're still, how far? Was that, how far?
10 feet.
Ventnor Avenue is 10 feet.
10 feet.
So although the setback would be required 13 feet based on the adjoining property, we're still twice the amount that the minimum setback is under Margate zoning, correct?
Correct. And like I said, that's all dictated from the adjacent property.
Turning the corner onto Brunswick Avenue, the setback that would be required is 9.1 feet. We're requesting 8 feet to the porch, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, can you go through, please, why that variance would be just?
Well, it's a combination of things, is we're limited with the lot size, and also the average setback is 14 feet, okay? 14. It's not 5, it's 14. So we lose a lot of house within that setback. Being the house on the corner, I believe that there is no one will be affected by 1-foot porch moving forward, and that also gives us a deck of 6 feet, which is a usable deck, instead of 5 feet.
And the front yard porch to Ventnor Avenue, not the structure, but the porch, actually exceeds the required setbacks, correct?
That's correct, because we can have 5 feet over there.
And the minimum side yard setback, which would be 7, is exceeded on your design, because we're at, the minimum is 5, we're at 7 feet, correct?
That's correct. We have 2 fronts and 2 sides, so we have a 10-foot setback and a 7-foot setback.
And in addition to that, although it's not a variance to be discussed tonight, that the building coverage that we're going in for is actually under what is allowed by Margate's code, correct?
That's correct. We're allowed 40%, and we're using 38%. And we're also under lot coverage, too, which we're allowed 65%, and we're at 52% in lot coverage. So we're way under our lot coverage.
With regard to the side yard setback, or front yard setback variances for Brunswick and Ventnor, do you see any detriment associated with either one?
Absolutely not.
And do the positives of designing the house the way you did outweigh any possible detriments, if there should ever be an argument that there is a detriment to the house?
I got outweigh.
To the positives, in your opinion, do the positives of your design outweigh any potential or possible negatives that could be construed with regard to the way the house was designed?
Well, I don't see any negatives. Being that the fact that it is on Ventnor Avenue, it is a corner lot, we have a bus stop that's also out front. No one should be impaired by this at all, with the front porch being 1 foot closer.
And in your professional testimony, does the house design create any site triangle issues based on the fact that you're on the corner between Ventnor and Brunswick?
No.
The end of it, it's based on the,
Are any site triangles adversely impacted by the design of this?
No.
We're also requesting a 1-foot height variance.
Correct.
Explain how you designed the house and where the extra foot comes into play.
Okay, the reason for the 1-foot height variance is we have a 6'6" top of plate. Okay, so 6'6" is where the plate height is going to be. Okay, I'm 6 foot, which will slope up. So the reason being is, if I didn't have the extra foot, I would have a 5'5", which would be here. Okay, so the headroom wouldn't be there. So it's really about headroom being at.
Are you talking about at the wall itself?
At the wall itself, where then it goes on the slope, okay? And then it goes up to 8 feet to the flat part, okay? So it's 6'6" at the edge of the plate where it breaks on the slope of the roof. Okay? And that's the reason for the extra foot, was to get a little bit more headroom in those upper bedrooms, because they kind of get real small.
This measurement from the, does that say 9'10"?
Put the mic on, Mike.
9'10" is floor to floor.
That's the height of the first.
No, it's floor to floor, so I have structure, so the ceiling height is only 9 feet. Yeah. And then I have 2 layers of sheetrock, so it's actually 8'10" and some change, the ceiling height.
Okay.
I find with the, nobody wants 8-foot ceilings. Everybody would like to have 9 foot on their main living floor. 8 foot is kind of a little bit low for most people, especially when, they're, $800 to $1 million homes or more.
What,
It's hard to explain an 8-foot ceiling when you're buying a house for $1 million some dollars.
right, what are the floor joists between, on the
I'm only
first?
using 9.5-inch floor joists, so I'm at the minimum. I've had this discussion before about this problem that it occurs with this 28 feet. The problem is getting the third floor in there, and you're allowed a third floor with 50% coverage. So it's really, a difficulty to make it work. Okay?
Right, and you're going for a 9-foot ceiling.
Right.
Right.
Mark, I have a question for you. What method did you use to calculate the third floor area? What method did you use to calculate the area of that half story?
The half story, I
Yes.
used the area of the second floor, which was 1053, and took half of that, which I came up with the 524.
So that includes the heavy line?
It doesn't include the stairwell, of course, because the stairwell is not technically living space. So it's really this
So
rectangle.
you didn't include the stairwell on the second floor?
I'm sorry?
You didn't include the stairwell on the second floor either?
I included it on the second floor
Why wouldn't you include it on the third floor?
because it's not living space.
But it's area.
Excuse me?
But it is area, correct?
It is area, but it's not technically living space.
Does the ordinance say living space, or I thought it says floor area?
Oh, it's based on living space.
I don't think the ordinance says that.
Pardon?
I don't think the ordinance says that.
But let me interject too. Did you say you included it on the second floor but not the third floor? If you're not including it on one, why would you include it on the other?
Because what I'm calculating is and also that the fact that it does slope down, okay? It's not as, the eave height is not the same level, okay? It slopes down. You can see right here that the roof actually slopes down. And the way it reads in the ordinance, I think it says 5'4" from the vertical up. And the truth of the matter is,
I think
it's not living
we need to
space.
compare apples to apples.
Well, all I can tell you is that, this is what I've been doing with prior to you, Roger, and it never was an issue. So I don't know what to tell you.
Tonight it might be.
Let the record show Remy Grossman is here. Eric, you may be aware that we are considering raising the heights for roofs. Well, it's a two-edged sword because we're considering raising the heights of the roofs but not of the side walls. If the roof goes up a foot, the pitch has to go up a foot. If the roof goes up 2 foot. So even if we were to consider a 29-foot ceiling, that's not going to help your 6'6" side wall. The side wall, we're not going to approve something that if we're changing to give you some more headroom, we're not going to, I can't say we're not going to approve, but we're going to look at it hard if you don't lower those side walls to where they would have been with.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, you're talking about a triangle of 1 foot. It's not like the whole building mass. It's just the triangle at the peak, which is 1 foot.
Well, that's always where it goes above the
Understand.
foot. It's always a small piece that goes above the...
Understand, but that 1 foot is not impeding anybody's view or anything like that. It's not taking light away from the house
Well, then that
adjacent
would
to it.
apply to every house that's built in town, then every house would be not in compliance with our zoning.
I jump in?
It's always, the peak of the roof is always the only thing that goes over, and it's always a small portion of the house. Go ahead, Mike.
If you were to drop the eave height and raise the pitch, it still kept the 29.
Well, if I
Basically end up with the
change the
same-
roof pitch, that would mean I'd probably have a 6-foot plate height instead of a 6'6". It would,
You
about
follow?
6 inches or so.
And I think that would...
Oh, yeah, I
you know,
follow you.
get-
And that would bring the eave down
One
a little
foot.
bit lower.
And make the mass of the house look lower.
So basically, if I take this roof pitch and go steeper than what I am, these plates will drop down.
If you have 512 and make the roof pitch 612 at your 29,
Right.
all I can say is you have
Now-
a much better chance of getting any approval here if you did that than if you didn't do that. And,
Yeah.
you know, who knows if we
Well, like I
approve
said,
it.
everything's dictated according to the zoning. I mean, your minimum roof pitch is 5 and 12, okay, which says you have to have 5 and 12. I mean, I
We
can
also say 28 feet.
understand.
I think it'll be about a 7 pitch.
7?
It'll be about a 7.
I think we can do the 7 and 12 if that would make everybody more comfortable. It'll bring the mass down a little bit. It'll still keep the 29 feet, but the eaves would drop down.
The way the new law is going to read is wherever the roof would be at 5, 12, and 28 feet, that side wall stays where it is and the roof can go up.
Well, what I'm saying is we'll keep the 29 feet, take the pitch steeper, and drop the plates down to 6
To where
foot.
they would have been.
Exactly.
Yes. That's,
I think it's like 5'11", 5'6" actually, because it's a foot difference. So the plate heights are at 6'11", so it'd be 5'11".
are your applicants as tall as you are? Are the applicants as tall as he is?
The average height.
This person had a question, Mr. Patterson, as we watch the change of things. 29 with the roof pitch, no change. So the plate height remains
Well, it'd be at probably 6 feet.
So that
6'2", 6'3". If we do 8 and 12,
if the board sees that it's rare, we would accept that as
I want to be clear on that. It's where that, if the house was at 28 feet with a 512 pitch, that's where the wall height will stay.
well, it stays the same place.
right.
Not where it is now.
Right,
because
right,
it's
right, you're
already
right. The
up.
plates would be the same height. It's just a 1 extra foot.
Unless the board has any questions,
I have a question, Mark. On your plan here, you're showing the front door is going to be now on Brunswick Avenue.
Right.
Okay, but your address is still going to be on Ventnor
Understand.
Avenue. On your design, you're showing the steps to the front door on Brunswick. On your plan, you're showing...
We have them in both places because I talked...
But here you don't.
Okay. Well, what we did is we talked to the tax people because we were addressing the location of the door. And I said, if I put stair access from the Ventnor Avenue, would that suffice for the 7600 Ventnor Avenue sign? And they said yes.
So your bottom elevation diagram is wrong, and your top...
Well, the
layout
elevation is incorrect. It doesn't show...
Doesn't show the stairs.
Exactly. Exactly.
But they are going to be on
They are going to be there. And I have a rendering that shows that.
So, Mr. Collins, what we've discussed is the neighboring property, which is now at 2 South Brunswick,
May or may not allow the applicants to have a 2A South Brunswick address. Without their permission, it will remain a Ventnor Avenue address, and the mailbox will be on Ventnor Avenue, although the entrance will be on Brunswick. We're still not 100% sure. I spoke to Mr. Mangman, the tax office. He said this is something that's going to have to get clarified before the house is completed, but we're still working on that. But I don't think that really affects the board tonight. There will be an entrance on Brunswick. The mailbox, if it's a Ventnor Avenue address, will be on Ventnor Avenue, and there will be a space to get the mail there, too.
So this rendering is what?
That, correct. Although, based on Mr. McLaurin's recommendation, there will be some more of a bump out towards the rear of the house on Ventnor Avenue to make it look more like a front. Yeah,
All right, that needs to be a condition.
correct. And we're fine with that.
Well, it wasn't mentioned. I just want it on the record that it's mentioned. You're under coverage.
So architectural projections.
Could we just get a clarification? I'm sorry. Are we adding now, in addition to the height variance request, a roof pitch request too? Are you going to go that way, or are you?
That's correct.
Okay, we just weren't sure. Could you, I guess in layman's terms, explain to us visually how it's going to change it? Is it going to smush the pitch, or is it going to steepen it? It's, okay, because we have a drawing.
Jackie, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mark, just,
All right, it's hard to do both. So we're going to take the roof pitch from a 5 and 12 and go to an 8 and 12, so it'll be steeper
And you'll be at the 29 feet.
at the 29 feet.
8/12 or 7/12?
I think it's at 7.
Whatever it is,
It'll meet the order.
But what I'll do is I'll keep it 29, and whatever it is,
Okay.
we'll
Keep the
6
29
foot-
over the
we'll
walls
keep
and
the
whatever it
6
comes
foot
out to
plate-
be.
We'll keep the
Okay.
6-foot plate height, is what we will do. So whatever that distance ends up being.
Okay.
Okay?
Did you have any problem with the recommendations that were in Roger's reports about the side that's on Brunswick appearing more front-like as well? Any objection to that?
You mean at Ventnor Avenue?
Or Ventnor Avenue, excuse me.
they've agreed to
Well,
that.
what we talked about was adding another element over here to break that flatness up.
Rich, with that roof pitch change, you're still staying at the, you're still going to need the 1-foot height variance,
Right.
They still need the 1-foot height variance.
but just
But they
with the
can't.
steep, yeah, they're dropping the wall.
They have to drop the walls back to where they would have been.
What's it accomplishing?
It's accomplishing less mass in the house. It's accomplishing a better-looking house. The board before had decided that they didn't want 30-foot houses. We're having a lot of problems with more and more people coming in, but we have to kind of abide by the board not wanting that. And we thought by bringing the roof pitch higher, or the roof pitch steeper, you have less of a look of a mass building. That's the purpose of it. And that's,
And it's dropping the eaves also down aesthetically.
it gave them a little more height on the third floor in the middle, but it kept the sides where it was. And I'll talk to you later. Anything else from the board? Any other questions? Is anyone here from the, please come forward and be sworn in.
My name is Gary Fisher. We're 70s. Gary Fisher, Fischer, 7600 Ventnor Avenue. The question I have, I know when we did changes to our house, we had to have so much ground coverage. I know maybe they're grandfathered because of what they have. They have very little ground coverage other than what they have in the
I don't
front
think
of
there's
the
any
porch.
grandfather, and they're tearing their house down. They start from scratch.
So what I'm concerned about is the ground coverage and also the setback. It sounds like your setback is not going to be as far as our house.
Theirs will be 10 foot, yours is 13 foot.
Okay, so I'm just looking at is when we come out of the house, what we're doing is like staring into the back of their house now on the side.
Normally, the way the rule is written, and this is not for you or against you, I'm just explaining the dilemma that they have. You have a 200-foot span on each side of your house, and you have to be the average of those houses within 200 feet on your block. That's what your setback is determined. So you can be further forward or back than your neighbors. You can't exceed the average. In this particular situation, on any street ends when there's only two houses, your one house sets that distance. You know, there's no averages here. Your house sets the difference. So that's why they have to meet that 13 foot. The minimum is 5 feet. And again, I understand your objection. I'm not supporting them in any way, but the minimum is 5 feet. And they're bound by the one house instead of the average of houses within 200 feet, because that's where the block is.
That was our biggest concern, is the
Right,
setback
but-
portion. And also, I noticed the other day, the survey markers were in the ground. All of a sudden now, the survey marker that's between the two houses in the front, Ventnor Avenue, has been pulled. It's still the one in the back. There's still one on the other side.
They're
The one in the
exceeding,
front's been pulled, and I don't know why. And also, like I said, I assume if I'm looking, that area we have is our fences, that's on our property, I assume. So that's something they get to work out as neighbors, whatever.
Yeah, that's not something before the board. If they're on your property or you're on their property, that can be worked out.
But I was worried about more the setback they have,
Well,
and especially if we come out.
And the ground coverage, they're exceeding the landscaping coverage, and they're also smaller, the house coverage on the lot is smaller than what they're allowed, so there is no problem there. That they don't need a variance for that. The only thing that you'd be concerned with that they're getting a variance for is their house is 3 feet in front of yours, closer to the street.
It's something that just, I guess, because when we did the work in our house, we could have tore it down, we put a lot of work into it, but we wanted to keep the charm of the older house
Right,
there.
yeah.
And it just seems like now everything's just getting taller and taller around us, too.
Mr. Fisher, there's a tree in the backyard on your property near the fence. Do you want that tree there to give you a little
We
more?
have no tree in our back.
No, they're putting a tree in.
Pardon me?
They're putting a large tree in, isn't that, I see? Sure.
Where's the, I guess, where's, oh,
No, he's on Ventnor Avenue.
This needs to be recorded. Could you please speak into the microphone?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not, where are you?
Your garage, you're saying right here. And that's three and the landscape.
That's in the back. Where's the garage of the neighbor on,
Your garage, right.
like in the front corner? I mean, a big tree in the front there.
It's just a softening.
Larry, you are going to be farther away from his house.
That's correct, Mr. Sawyer, yes. And Mr. Fisher, we took your property into consideration, as Mr. Patterson indicated, because the garage is on the left side, being bumped down. You didn't want to go out to 5 foot of the minimum. It could have been 8 feet from where it is now. We decided to cut back. So even though yours is 13 and yours does set the setback, tried to make it as nice as possible for the construction, but also didn't want to go as far out, because then you really come out and you'd have 5 extra feet, which would have been, I think, too much. So understanding it's tough. This is construction. Where you build setback is 2 foot 4.
That was my concern, and also the concern now, moving in, because the size of the houses right now on Ventnor Avenue, they're very close as they are now. But now, what I'm understanding, you're going,
That's correct.
closer.
More ground.
Right.
Less house, more.
Right, okay.
Than what's existing now.
That's correct.
Yes.
Less than 2 feet now, I think, on your side.
It's over 7 feet to the property line.
This is the first I've heard of this, what
Yeah.
I've seen.
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate your time, thank you.
Mark, where's the air compressor at?
Air conditioners, where are they located? In the back?
Third floor.
Oh, on the 3rd floor. Okay, so then
Nobody can hear you, so you're going to have to share the mic when you're talking.
Okay, what I said was the location of the air conditioners are located off the rear of the back of the house here, which will be right here, off the back.
So it'll be on our side, your back.
Right, up at 20 feet above the air, plus the ground height, 23 feet.
And they are. There's a railing.
They're screened?
Yeah, there's a screen right here, a railing system.
We'll let him know.
Yeah. That will be screened, so you will be seeing it too.
One last question I have. I know the street, the township or whatever, putting new gas lines, whatever. Now all of a sudden, I have markers again on my yard for gas meter, or for our pipes. Are your pipes in our ground? Do you know? Okay. Yeah, they did, and I got the flags there now, but, okay.
That's nothing the board has anything to do with, so.
Thank you for your time. I
Okay,
appreciate it.
thank you. Anyone else from the public like to state anything? Public portion is closed. Any other questions or concerns from the board? Stan?
The application's a new construction at 7600 Ventnor Avenue.
It's in the S25 zone. The variances as listed are front yard setback to the porch on Brunswick Avenue. Requirements 9.1 feet, proposed is 8 feet. Another front yard variance on the other side on Ventnor Avenue for the building setback, requirements 13 feet, and the proposal is 10 feet. Building height variance will remain, requirements 28 feet, proposals 29 feet. Conditions of approval, the 29-foot height, the pitch will be changed to whatever the measurement would be to keep the walls as if it was a 5/12 pitch.
With a 28-foot.
With a 28-foot height, sorry. As if it was a 28-foot height with a 5/12 pitch. The walls will remain the same as it would be for that, despite the 29-foot height. And if the applicant has to use a Ventnor Avenue address, it will require the steps on the Ventnor Avenue side. And all the other conditions set forth in Mr. McLaren's report that weren't modified.
Thank you, Mr. Bergman. Those are
Okay.
acceptable.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I think Jim made it.
Tom Collins?
It's kind of a little bit confusing. This is a really large house on the lot. The fact that it's on a corner property complicates the variances required. I understand that. If it wasn't on a corner, I would think it would be too large for the location, but because it is on the corner and it's got a lot of air, light, and flow around the house, I really don't see any negative impact to the neighborhood. I think it's going to be an upgrade to what's existing and probably be an enhancement to the neighborhood from that standpoint, so I vote in favor.
Clem Wozleski?
Usually I'd have a problem with a large setback variance such as on the front, on the Ventnor Avenue side here, but it's caused by the unusual situation that there's only one other lot to compare it with instead of lots within 200 feet. And I always have a problem with giving a height variance solely to get a 9-foot ceiling height. But since it appears that we're raising the allowable height when we revise the ordinance shortly, I suppose that argument withers away, so I'll vote to approve.
Mike Richmond?
Pretty much agree with what Clem had to say. I think the Ventnor Avenue setback variance is being pushed by the driveway being on Brunswick, which is a much safer situation than having to drive off Ventnor Avenue. And as far as the height variance goes, I also agree with Clem, but since looks like we're going to move in the direction of raising the height, I approve that too, so I do approve the application.
Jim Galantino?
Looks like there'll be less mass on the property as it stands for the front yard setback and the height variance and the side yard setback. And then we're also getting the property away from that rear yard toward Mr. Fisher's property and having a tree put in so that'll soften that area a little bit. I vote in favor.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I'm in agreement with Mr. Wozleski and Mr. Richmond in terms of the height and the less mass because of the roof pitch and because we probably may be raising the allowable height in the near future. Because it's a corner property and based upon the fact that we are, the approved coverage is under the requirement, I think it's an aesthetic improvement to the neighborhood and I vote in favor.
Mike Cristaldi?
As with the rest of the board members, on basically all the same reasons for the variance for the setback and the roof height, bringing that down with changing the mass, I think it's going to look great. I approve.
Rich Patterson?
I also approve. I think the fact that you're not maximizing what you could do on that property is a good thing. I like the fact that you're making both fronts of the house look like fronts of the house. So I approve.
The application passes 7-0.
Next case is Evans Grove, New Jersey, LLC, 26 North Madison Avenue, Block 230, Lot 43, in the MF District, to grant a C variance for lot area, front yard setback to porch, and building on 2 fronts, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. McLaren?
Rich, just,
1 moment.
it's very difficult to hear tonight for reasons I don't understand.
I don't either. Go ahead.
Maybe if we could dispense with the microphones and just ask everybody to speak up louder.
Well, the microphones pick it up for the tapes, so we can't dispense with the microphones. I do too, but I've asked that before, and we have to have the mics on for the recording. Oh, wait, let me interject for a minute too. There's a case number, Item 8 has been pulled from the agenda. If anyone is here for a Nat Cohen, 29 South Madison Avenue, that has been pulled from the agenda. It'll be scheduled at a later date, maybe. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Board Chairman and board members. My report is dated October 25th, 2016. Background: the applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to demolish an existing dwelling and construct a new 2-story single-family dwelling in the multifamily zone. Schedule B1 was used to determine the bulk variances as usual, and as indicated by the chart, the S30 zone was used to determine the proper setbacks and coverages. The area of S30 zones resembles the area of the property in question. Variance is required and requested. Front yard setbacks for the porch on Winchester Avenue, whereas 13.2 feet is calculated average and 5 foot is a minimum if no prevailing exists, and 7 foot is proposed. Front yard setbacks for the building along Winchester Avenue, whereas 21.57 feet is the calculated average, 5 foot is a minimum if no prevailing exists, and 7 foot is proposed. Front yard setbacks for the porch along Madison Avenue, whereas 13.9 feet is calculated and 8 feet is proposed. Front yard setbacks for the building along Madison Avenue, whereas 19.27 feet is calculated average and 15 feet is proposed. No waivers have been requested. My comments are as follows. In a multifamily zone where a single-family dwelling is proposed, the prevailing zoning chart is for a single-family dwelling. This would make the undersized lot for the MF zone an existing non-conforming issue. The size is compliant with the single-family S30 zone requirements which are being applied. Lot width requirements are based on using the 50-foot dimension versus the 62.5-foot dimension for consistency in other applications. All coverage requirements are governed by the same. The steps heading towards Winchester Avenue should be considered to be removed as they may encroach within the site triangle. Also, as a suggestion, filling the lot by 1 foot would raise the garage floor to 6 foot, may reduce nuisance flooding, and provide for better grading of the lot. There is ample allowable height to accomplish this request in the building height. A grass strip is shown to be added on both frontages. Street trees will be planted behind the sidewalk where more room is available, and there is no overhead utility conflicts. Both front yard landscaping requirements shall be met by providing a minimum of 15 shrubs along Winchester Avenue and 18 shrubs along Madison Avenue for a total of 65. For variance relief and waiver relief, the following pertains. Recommendations: the variances being sought require testimony from the applicant to satisfy the C1 and C2 criteria where appropriate. If the board finds that the testimony provided provides evidence that supports the variances, then I would recommend the below recommendations, if not already done. Revised plans may be needed to reflect the comments. I have no further comments.
Rich, before we start,
Yes.
Roger, one question.
Yes, sir.
You had said 18 shrubs on Madison, 15 on the other on Winchester, a total of 65. I didn't understand that.
The whole property needs...
The whole entire property. Need 65. Up to
There's minimum
65.
for the front.
So they're just the front yard, and then 65 total is required for the whole property?
Minus the 33, right?
Wow.
Yeah. We can work on that. That's...
Good evening, Brian Callahan of the law firm Callahan Thompson Thompson, on behalf of the applicant Evans Grove, 26 North Madison. Little background on the applicant. This is his 5th project in Margate. We've done 7 North Adams, 204 North Adams, 215 North Granville, 304 North Thurlow. All of the houses have been built, all of the houses have been sold. We're here tonight, and it looks like we're asking for large front yard variances. As the previous application only had one person to compare it to, we have a large number of people to compare it to, but when you look at Mr. McLaurin's tax map, all of the lots next to us are 50 by 125-foot lots. We're 50 by 62 and a half. So all of the houses going both down Winchester Avenue and going down Madison Avenue are 50 by 125-foot lots. So all of their houses are set back. Mr. Lolio will give you an idea when he testifies. If we met the setbacks on this, we'd have almost like a bowling alley going up in the air because you wouldn't have anything buildable and going through it. So we think that we've designed a nice 2-story house without going over it, and we think that we'll be able to meet you the C1 and the C2 criteria because of the unique situation that at some point in time, it appears from the tax map that the 2 houses on the corner are both 50 by 62 and a half. So we believe at one point in time in the past history, it probably was also 50 by 125 that was down. Older house, we're going to be, all of the other requirements, all of the landscaping requirements, off-street parking, the 4 sites are all going to be met. So let me call Mr. Lolio, have him sworn in. I also have Mario here, so let me have both of them sworn in, and then that way if you have any questions, we can go from there.
State your name for the record.
Robert Lolio, L-O-L-I-O.
And your name, please.
Mario Selecchia,
Please
Sellecchia.
raise your right hand. Speak your testimony regarding the
I do.
Robert, real quick, you haven't testified before the Margate board. Give us a little bit about your qualifications, how long you've been licensed as an architect.
I have a bachelor's of architecture degree, and I'm licensed in the state of New Jersey, and I've had my license now for a little over 3 years.
You've testified Ventnor, Longport, Atlantic City.
I've done Ventnor, Atlantic City, Hamilton, Cape May.
Mr. Bergman, Mr. Patterson? Yes. Why don't you walk them through the exhibit right now and show them where we're located and talk a little bit about the variances that we're asking for.
Okay, so we're on the corner of Madison and Winchester, and if you look at drawing 1C, I did a diagram of the buildable area allowed if we conform to the average front yard setbacks, and we'd be left with 691 square feet of buildable area. So what I proposed was extending the 2 front yards out to 8-foot porch on Madison, and then 15-foot setback to the building on Madison. And we're exceeding the 5-foot minimum on Winchester, so the porch is 7 and the building is 7. All other bulk requirements have been met, so the only 2 things we're asking for is the front yard setbacks on Winchester and Madison. And in my opinion, it doesn't really affect the adjacent properties because we're conforming to the side and rear yard.
Mr. Lolio, currently on the first floor on Winchester, that building is set at the 8-foot mark straight up to the 2 stories, the existing house. The existing, it is.
Yes.
We're putting a porch at the ground floor level currently on the Winchester side. So at the first level
On the first level and second level.
and second level. So that will open up the building at that point in time to the other people going down Winchester Avenue.
Yes,
Even though it's a 7-foot setback, it's a porch.
correct.
On the front on Madison, once again, porch, and then the setback to the main building is 15 feet.
Correct.
And we're also putting in 4 off-street on-site parking.
Yes,
Storage area. We're providing storage at the ground level.
yes, I have a storage area on both sides and on the front of the garage,
2-story home.
2 stories.
Landscaping.
Landscaping has been shown.
We're meeting the landscape requirements. It's going to be a well-landscaped property.
Yes,
Building coverage. We're under the building coverage.
correct.
Do you believe, in your opinion, that we're going to be blocking anyone's light, air, or open space by the construction of the new home?
No, we're well under the building height requirement, and we're conforming to the side and rear yard setback requirements.
Mr. McLaurin made a couple recommendations talking a little bit about the removal of the steps facing the Winchester Avenue because of the site triangle. Have you had an opportunity to take a look at that?
Yes, Madison Avenue is a one-way towards the east, and Winchester is one-way towards the south. So cars would be going in this direction and this direction, and nobody's really making a turn.
I've thought of that too, but in Margate, the directions of the streets they may change.
Right.
So I think we need to accomplish that and be conservative in that approach. Plus, you have bicycles that ride the other way anyway, so I think you have to take that into consideration.
We can accomplish that.
Thank you.
We just wanted to get some rationale because one was going this way, so there would be nobody coming down.
It's easier to change it now.
The one-ways are being studied again, so, at this time, so we have to be prepared to change it.
We will take a look at the grade. People next to us are concreted in, people on the other side of us going down Madison are concreted in. So whatever grade we would do, we would have to grade from back to front to accomplish the new grade. But once again, it was a great thought, so we'll seriously take a look at that, to raise the grade on that garage level side. Do you see, once again, back on a negative criteria, do you see any type of a negative detriment to the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood by the tearing down of this old house and putting in a new house?
No, I don't.
Mechanicals, how are you going to handle your mechanicals?
Mechanicals are there's an HVAC platform within the building setback, so there's no encroachment there.
I don't have any other questions, Mr. Lowey. I'd open it up to the board.
I just want to point out that Bob and I discuss this project quite often, and I think the final product is a pretty good product. And the driveway situation, you have 4 usable spaces. They're not stacked 4 deep. And I think the board ought to consider that as an asset to this application.
Is this the Winchester Avenue side?
Yes.
The same problem?
I just have a quick question.
Wait a minute, we're not done.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Absent from my report, as the previous application was presented, I suggested that the Winchester Avenue, or the Ventnor Avenue in the previous application, look like 2 fronts. Are you willing to possibly add some architectural features on Winchester Avenue frontage to make it look like a second front?
Is it the one at the top left? The one at the top left, is that your Winchester Avenue side?
Yes.
Well, that's a heavily traveled street, too. If you could put some type of detail, a pent
I
roof
could
or
add
anything.
like box windows and bump outs to the 7-foot encroachment. We could do that.
Should we have that looked at by a committee of 2?
Sure.
Present it to us. We'll have a small committee that'll look at it to say, okay. Is that okay?
That's fine. Mr. Collins, back to you.
Mr. Collins, right? Yes, it is.
I just have a quick question. I'm not familiar with the way you draw your plans, but I'm looking at your right elevation, for example, on the sheet, and you shaded in all your areas of the porches?
That's open, just open airspace beyond.
So that shading is, instead of white, you're just shaded it, but it is all open. Same
Right.
thing on the backside?
Yes.
Okay. Just clarification, because to me it looks like it's a enclosed surface, but it's not. It's air and open.
Brian, this property has a line of evergreens along the ocean side, am I correct? Existing. You going to save them? I'd like to see them saved, too. Could we make that a condition? There's a line of evergreens on the oceanside property line. Very tall, very narrow, in wonderful condition. And I would like to see them saved.
If you make that a condition, though, when something happens during construction, then he's all...
Then they'd have to replace
I mean, it's
them.
just as landscaping, right? I don't...
You have a problem with it? Make it a condition?
What is the building built out of, Bob?
Say that again?
Is it masonry or piling?
It's going to sit on piling?
It's going to sit on piling?
Yes. We're enclosing the walls with cement board.
Is that those blowout walls or whatever? Is that what these three things are? Breakaway walls?
Oh, that's a screening to the, on the ground floor, there's a porch next to the garage. So those are like louvered screening to keep the porch open to the air.
Okay.
Mr. Westwood, as your condition, can I say to the best of our ability, we will try to maintain the line of evergreens?
I'd rather see you replace any that were damaged.
I'll ask them.
How close are the evergreens to the property line?
I believe they're actually on the property line. It's a row of arborvitaes that's about 25 plants, and I would like to save them.
And how far, you're right, so how far is that property line from the construction? 10
Mike.
I don't know if we can do it, where Mike's just pointing out it's 10.5 there now. If we move that to 8 and increase Winchester Avenue by 2, would that help us? I mean, I don't see any difference in the side yard, looking at the house from Madison, that if we were to shift that 2 feet, we'd be 8 feet off the setback there, and then on the front, on Winchester Avenue, to pick up another 2 feet.
Oh, and keep the same house.
Yeah, keep the same house.
Shift the...
Just shift it to the left 2
Shift the
feet.
variance to the other side of the house.
Yeah. I mean, building the same house, you're doing the same thing. You've got 8 feet here instead of 10, and we get more room on Winchester Avenue, and everything stays the same. Does that make sense?
That makes it tougher to save those trees if you do that.
The arborvitae's in the back corner?
The arborvitae's along that property line.
Let me put it this way. The house is permanent. The arborvitae's, one way or another, aren't if we get another Sandy.
He has arborvitae's on his landscape schedule.
Yeah, right
I
here.
mean, Right. If they are damaged, I mean, I think it's unfair to hold them to it. I mean,
I don't think it's going to make any difference with the arborvitae's.
I think what the board is requesting, that row of arborvitae's be replaced if they're damaged, and that'll count towards your landscape and shrub count, as fair as to the
The
applicant.
city has a hard time making people replace arborvitae's. It's just a suggestion.
Do you think it's better to have more room on Winchester?
Sure.
Do you have any problem doing that? Moving the house? Switch. We want 25-foot arborvitae's to replace what's there now. I think what Mike was saying was, you will still have a variance, but switch your variance to the Is there a neighbor on that side? Well, then we have a problem. We can't do that. We can't do that. No.
Well, because they
weren't notified.
They weren't
No, we can't do that. Never mind.
Leave it as is.
Leave it as it is.
I was going to say, it triggers additional variances if we don't have compliance side yard setback.
Yeah, leave it as it is.
I have a question.
Yes.
We're trying to make the front and the side look very similar. When I look at this drawing and I see the storage area, and then as he explained, that's an open porch, but it's got like louvers in it with little air pieces between it. So it gives you the effect of a solid wall going down Winchester Avenue, not really an open porch. Even though if air is traveling through there, you might consider it to be open. But he's using almost a louvered look on that place that's called the porch. It's not open as we would understand it to be an open porch. And then with the storage area there, that's almost a continued solid wall going down Winchester Avenue. That's what I see.
But I think I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. Are you saying the porch is behind those louvers? Yes. On ground level?
Yes, the porch is underneath the house.
Got it.
Setback.
Got it.
We were just putting a screen so it's so close to Winchester for a little privacy.
What we've been looking for is not that the front and the side look the same, but both of them look more like fronts. Even if they're different, they both just have some more character instead of a flat wall. And if they build some character with some box windows or a pent roof or something on that side, it just gives some depth to it as people are driving by.
That would be on the right elevation.
With the high foundations, we're kind of stuck with the flatness of the high foundations.
Well, he is adding quite a bit of landscaping along that one side
He is
there, too.
adding landscape. Okay.
Is that neighbor here?
The other thing, Joe, is that's listed on the plans as a screened porch, not an open porch. I just happen to say it.
Any other questions from the board? Are you done? Brian?
We are done.
Any other questions from the board? Is anyone here from the public who would like to comment on this case? Public portion is closed. Any further comments from the board? Would you read it, Stan?
The applications requiring C variance relief are all front yard relief from the Winchester side for the porch, the building on Winchester, the porch on Madison, and the building on Madison. Because of the size of the lot, I tend to agree with Mr. Callahan that because of the size of the lot, the setbacks are a little bit harder to comply with as compared to the other lots in the neighborhood. Mr. McLennan's report, without going through it, lists those requirements, lists the existing conditions of the current structure and the proposed distances for your review on page 2. I'm not going to repeat them. The conditions are the Winchester Avenue front. The applicant will submit architectural features to the committee for approval. Mr. McLennan's report dated October 25th, 2016. Those comments will be incorporated unless modified herein. And the board is going to state that the evergreen trees shall be maintained if possible, and if they're damaged, they'll be replaced according, I believe, to the landscape plan already. They're supposed to be that. Am I correct?
Correct.
Right now, the landscape plan has them anyway, so if they're damaged, they have to be that way anyway.
Place to maintain the landscape.
Okay, so that's a condition also, to the extent I can make it. Okay?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Tom Collins?
We find ourselves here with another corner lot, which creates a lot of variances and a undersized lot for the pattern of the neighborhood. I think the design and what you're doing here is actually modest, and I think it's going to be a major improvement to the neighborhood. I see no negative impacts. Whether we change street directions in the future, we don't know. Whether we change heights in the future, it's up to the commissioners, not this board. And I think what you're doing here is going to spur the neighborhood on. You've already done major development in that neighborhood, and I think it's going to continue to grow, which is better for Margate. So I vote in favor.
Clem Wazeski?
The improvements intended here for this property, relatively modest. and a considerable improvement over what exists there now. So I don't see any negatives as far as the neighborhood's concerned, but actually a number of positives. I vote to approve.
Mike Richmond?
Quick question, Roger, since this is in the multifamily district, could they have built a duplex if they wanted to?
No, the lot was too small. Too small.
Okay. All right. I think with the situation with the corner lot, again, if we abided by the setbacks that were required, it would basically make it uninhabitable. So I think that the setbacks are reasonable, and I'm going to approve it.
Jim Galantino?
As to the front yard setbacks for the C variance, I don't see any detriment. I think it's a positive. The house is going to look well with the screening that's going to be done on the first floor, and I look forward to seeing the construction. I approve.
Margaret Gubernalty?
Based upon the small lot size, I think the setbacks are understandable. I think it's an improvement to the neighborhood. I like that we have ample, or more than ample, parking available, and that the Winchester Avenue side, there'll be two fronts to the property, is aesthetically an improvement, and I approve the application.
Mike Cristaldi?
We did make it a condition to dress up the Winchester side of the house. With that, I'm ashamed the neighbor wasn't here to move it, but it is what it is. I approve it.
Rich Patterson?
Looking at the survey and seeing every one of your neighbors with a 125-foot lot, it's a hardship that's unreasonable. So that's really the only variances you're asking for that was caused by that. I see no harm from this. I think it was unreasonable to expect you to meet those qualifications, so I approve.
Thank you very much.
Application passes 7-0. Brian, come sign, please.
Next case, Jeffrey Aversa, 406 North Mansfield Avenue, Block 614, Lot 30, in the S40 district to grant a C variance for rear deck within the rear setback, side setback, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. McLarnon?
Thank you, Board Chairman and Board members. My report is dated October 24th, 2016, revised October 25th, 2016. Some background. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to construct a rooftop deck on a former garage converted to a pool house or a storage area. The deck would be connected to the principal building, the second floor deck. Several variances are required as outlined below. A survey was not supplied and should have been in order to determine coverages properly. A copy of a survey was submitted, but it was not to scale, and it wasn't signed and sealed. Variances required and requested. Side yard setback for the deck, whereas 10 feet is the minimum and 2.9 feet is proposed. Combined side yard setbacks, whereas 22 feet is the minimum and 13.8 feet is proposed. Rear yard setback, whereas 16 feet is required and 3 feet is proposed. Accessory structures, whereas up to 9 feet in height is permitted and 9.75 feet in height is proposed, if it is a storage building. Accessory structures, where up to 80 square feet in area is permitted and 200 square feet in area is proposed. Flat roof on a garage accessory structure, whereas minimum roof pitches of 5 to 12 are required and a flat roof is being proposed. Possible other variances if the structure is considered part of the principal structure. The principal structure does not meet any of the setbacks. The side yard setback for the deck and principal structure, whereas 10 feet is a minimum and 2.9 feet is proposed. Combined side yard setbacks, whereas 22 feet is the minimum and 13.8 feet is proposed. Rear yard setback, whereas 16 feet is required and 3 feet is proposed. So a total of 9 variances could be possibly needed. No waivers have been required or requested. Comments. The existing rear yard deck complies with the rear yard setbacks. The existing deck surface will be nearly 10 feet from grade and less than 3 feet from two neighbors' properties. No proposed lighting is shown. Applicant needs to provide testimony if any music would be played from the proposed deck. Connecting a principal structure to an accessory structure unites the two structures and possibly creates a larger principal structure. Section 172-2, definitions. Accessory building or structure. A building or structure, the use of which is customarily incidental and subordinate to that of the principal building located on the same lot. When an accessory building is attached in a substantial manner by a wall or roof to a principal building or structure, it shall be considered a part thereof. In my opinion, the deck is acting as a roof and enlarges the principal structure. The board will need to determine if the covered deck structure acts as a roof and confirm what I interpret. The deck surface will be solid in nature, not allowing penetration of water. Applicant shall provide testimony that no outdoor stairs are being considered to the deck of the second floor. The proximity of the deck to overhead utility lines will be minimal. Is there an existing easement on the property? That is not shown.
Roger, on number 9, what does that mean? It's too close to the utility lines, or
Yes,
it's not
yes,
close to?
it is close. It
is close to the
yes.
utility lines.
Yes, there are overhead utility lines within arm's reach. Recommendations. The variances being sought require testimony from the applicant to satisfy C1 and C2 criteria where appropriate. If the board finds that the testimony provides evidence that supports the variances, then I would recommend the below recommendations, if not already, be a condition of approval. As a condition of approval, in a positive manner, I think that the applicant shall submit a signed and sealed to-scale survey. If the board chooses to approve this application, I would recommend that the utility companies be notified and request a letter of no interest or similar in regard to the proximity to the overhead utility lines. A condition of any approval shall be on the applicant receiving all required permits. Testimony shall be required to demonstrate that drainage will be properly handled and satisfactory to the board and its planner and zoning officer. I have no further comments.
You're on.
Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Becker, and I'm representing the applicant, Dr. Jeffrey Aversa, with regard to the application. What he's simply seeking to do here is put a deck on top of the existing building. Nothing else is being changed. Unfortunately, because we're making a change to the building, it calls these variances into play. But in reality, the building is going to be lower than it currently is. If this is approved, it'll also be a smaller building than exists presently. Right now, the building height is at 12.6 feet, and it will be lowered to just over 9 feet, or could be lowered to the actual allowable height of 9 feet. There's not going to be any electricity run to this. There's not going to be any music in this deck, and there's not going to be any lighting on this deck. So the building itself is going to be made a slight bit smaller. The only access to this deck will be from the deck that comes off. There's a small deck with coming out of the bedroom on the second floor. They'll connect right there. There'll be no common wall between the existing building and the house. There's not going to be any roof that adjoins the two properties. That being said, I don't believe that it makes it a single structure, but I would indicate that even if the 200 square foot building that exists there on the property today were to be added to the house, we're still under the square footage permitted for this particular property. I believe that he's allowed 31% coverage in this area, which would allow him 1,488 feet. This, even if you add the 200-foot building, which is a bit larger than that right now, to the footprint of the house, we're still at around 1,441 feet, I believe. So the setbacks that are required and the variance for the size of the building, they exist already. We're not encroaching any further than what exists already and has been there for a number of years. What we are doing is we are making the building a bit smaller. We are, my client would be making the building lower, and the property at this point is pretty much surrounded by trees, which would block the view to any neighbor's property. But the neighbor that is most affected, as you can see from the pictures, there's a house that is right on the other side of the existing building. Those neighbors are here tonight, and they don't have an issue with this whatsoever. And they are the ones that would be directly affected if this was permitted. At one time, Dr. Aversa was given approval by Mr. Rubin to build a much bigger deck on the second floor coming off of the house, which would have been much more intrusive on any potential neighbors than what he's seeking to do here.
In that regard, if a deck was built off the second floor of the house, what would the setback requirements be for that deck from the property lines?
16 feet, I believe.
So now you have a deck that's 2 feet or 1 foot from the property line at that level. That's not a good thing.
Well, as I said, the building exists there already, and what this would be doing...
But you're making living space 10 feet above ground now, where a deck would be on that building. So really, the fact that the building's there, you now have a deck 10 feet over the ground, where if it was attached to the house, it would have to be 16 feet back. I mean, the purpose of having those setbacks for decks is so you're not standing right on top of your neighbor looking down.
But in this case, number one, there's going to be some foliage, bushes put around that edge to block off the neighbor. And secondly, as I indicated, the neighbor who is affected in this particular case, both he and his wife are here tonight. They're prepared to give comment to the board during the public session that they have no issue with this particular application. I'd like to have Dr. Aversa and Alex Wishney, who's an engineer, sworn.
Use the microphone, please. It's removable. Just take it out of the...
Jeffrey Aversa. Alex Wishney, W-I-S-H-N-I-E.
Dr. Aversa, how long have you lived at this property?
I bought the property in 2000. And it was a one-story structure that I put on a second floor deck, a second floor addition in 2002, I think it was.
The outbuilding that's there, was that there when you bought the property?
It was. It was a garage, as a lot of houses in Margate have a long driveway and a garage in the back. And prior to me purchasing it, the previous owner had modified it in a kind of scalloped out fashion and made it into a pool house because there's a pool there.
Now, you're seeking to put a deck on top of that building, is that correct?
Correct.
What is your purpose of doing that?
Well, so we could look at the pool and enjoy the pool, and basically that's it. We don't have children. It's my wife and I. We live a sober lifestyle. We don't have parties and rocking things and so forth.
Do you plan, you heard me mention to the board that you intended to put some planters.
Correct. So we did. There will be if approved, a planter box of 3 feet around the perimeter, and we plan on planting Leyland cypresses that would grow to not only give privacy for us, but also for our neighbors as well.
Is the rest of your backyard surrounded by fairly tall trees?
It is.
They're shown in the pictures.
Correct.
That we presented to the board. Do you plan on having any electrical service put
No.
in that deck if it's approved?
No.
So would you have any music there?
No.
Would you have any lighting?
No.
So this would be something to be only used during the daylight hours?
Pretty much, yes.
What changes do you anticipate being made to the building?
Well, the building height is 12 feet. The pitch of that, the point of that roof is 12 feet 6 inches, so it would come down to 9 feet. Is that your question?
How would you access. How do you intend on access?
Right, so the prior plans that were approved by Mr. Rubin had a second floor deck that actually mimicked the first floor deck in one of the pictures you can see. But once we got into the construction of the addition back in 2002, I realized that there would be a whole lot of deck in the backyard. So I just told him to put a railing up there and just not even build that deck. Because I think that deck actually would have been more obtrusive and clearly would have encroached on the privacy of my neighbors.
What do you think is more beneficial about putting the deck on the top of the existing, lowering the existing building, putting a deck on it, then building a deck the size of the one on the first floor and the second floor now?
Well, clearly it would be smaller. It would be less obtrusive.
I don't have any other questions of Mr. Aversa.
Mike?
Why would it be less intrusive to have the deck on the garage when it's so close to the property line, rather than having a deck coming off the second floor?
Right, well, the second floor deck would have been taller, would have been higher, more high. The way the plan is that you will come out of the...
Right.
And then a walkway and then down about 3 steps to 9 feet. But that second floor deck would have been around, I'm not quite sure how high, but it would have been clearly over 12 feet.
Right, but I know you asked this question before, but what would be the, if you had the deck on the second floor, how far would you be from your neighbors? How far would it be from the back of the property line?
16 feet.
16 feet? And how about the side yards? How about the side of the deck? That would be at least 10 feet, right? Because the driveway's over there. Yeah. Right. Okay. And also, is there, there's no survey? No? Okay.
That's a condition.
Huh?
That's a condition, they have to provide.
Right. But it'd be nice to see the existing on the thing, yeah.
Jim? Do you have anything? Yes? Joe?
Yes. You say just you and your wife, you don't do any parties or anything there, right? Do you plan to rent the property out at any future time? Have you ever rented it out before in the past?
But this is our primary residence.
And you never rented it out?
I had in the past.
You had? Okay. And was it for the summer or just...
No, I had a tenant there for 3 years, actually, a few years back.
Okay, and there's no plans to continue to do that?
No, not at all.
I have another question for Roger. If the decks, if there wasn't a connection, would all these variances still kick in, or?
Yes.
They would?
Yes.
Okay.
It wouldn't be considered a principal structure if they're not connected. But you still have all the setbacks requirements and variances for the deck itself.
Okay. Right, okay, good.
Can I say that,
Yes.
may I say something? I drove around Margate looking for a similar type thing, because I know that you probably don't want to do precedents, et cetera. But I found a number of properties on the Benson and Decatur off of Ventnor Avenue heading towards the beach. There were at least 3 properties there where there was a second floor doorway that opened up to a garage roof that was a deck. So there are existing similar type things.
So, are you done?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
No other questions?
No, not at this point.
Mr. Wishley, are you licensed as an engineer in the state of New Jersey?
Yes,
And how long have you been so licensed?
5 years.
Where do you work?
I work for John Rosenkrantz in Margate.
How long have you worked for him?
8 of the last 10 years.
What type of work do you normally do?
Structural engineering with house renovations, new construction, steel, wood, concrete.
But asked to have him qualified as an expert?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Wishley, did you design the plan in this particular matter?
Yes.
What were you asked to do here?
I was asked to design a roof deck to fit the footprint of the original garage structure. to be as low as feasible, and to remove a section of the existing wall, the points of the corners of the original garage structure near where the previous remodel had taken out a section.
And in your plan, lower the size of the roof, the height of the roof?
Yes, the elevation of the roof deck level will be lower than the current high point of the roof.
What is the current high point?
12.5 feet.
And you'd be lowering this to 9 feet or 9 feet 6 inches?
Approximately 9 foot 6 inches. That can be adjusted somewhat if needed.
Okay, that could be lowered?
It could be lowered somewhat if necessary.
All right. Now, you had an opportunity to observe this property prior to drawing your plans?
Yes, I did.
And you notice there's like a small deck area off the second floor of the property?
It's actually just a railing, a Juliet railing, where there was previous construction had created the capability to build a deck cantilevered off of that floor. That the deck was not built at.
And what's the height of that?
Approximately 14 feet.
And you have what would be the view? What is the view from that area into the neighbors' yards?
From which area?
From that area where the deck was going to go originally.
From that area, you would have to, if you're walking out the door to the left, you would look over a roof and past some trees to the neighbor on that side, and to the other side, your view is obstructed by the existing garage and some additional trees, and then towards the rear, again, there is some landscaping at the property line.
Would you have a better view into other properties from that height than you would from the deck that's proposed there?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you heard board members express concerns about the privacy of the neighbor, have you not?
I have.
All right. With the exception of that, do you see any detriments to the proposed deck here?
I do not.
To the neighborhood or the plan of the zone?
I do not.
Have any other questions?
Can we clarify the height of the structure?
The height of the structure, as currently designed, the elevation is a minimum of 9 foot 8 inches above grade, maximum 9, 11.5 for the deck level.
Top of the wall is 13 feet 3 inches?
13.6 at the high point.
Yes. So that's the actual height?
That's the height of the guard wall around the perimeter, yes.
Right, so.
I was differentiating between the guard wall and the deck.
Right. Yeah, 9 foot is maximum allowed. Just want to clarify that for the board.
It can be lowered to 9 feet. The deck level can definitely be lowered to 9 feet with the same plan. But obviously the guard.
But the wall will be higher.
42 inches, obviously, for the guard.
Is the entire pool going to be enclosed or just partial?
Nothing's being enclosed. I'm not sure I understand the question.
In detail S1, on 4's S1, it says existing top plate of pool enclosure wall.
That's the existing pool building. There's a wall plate at that level around the full perimeter of the existing pool building. The roof is on top of that. The existing pitched roof is on top of that.
Okay. That wall there, I'm sorry? The white wall?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it going to be a fiberglass deck?
It is, yes.
Okay.
A question was brought up about drainage. The drainage would be deck that is at the first story level, which is a couple feet up above grade. That's being demolished. So there'll be more grade level area, and that will provide drainage off to.
I have nothing further.
Anything else from the board? Just like to have the neighbors come up at this point, or anyone from the public to speak?
They won't be living there forever.
Got it covered.
You need to be sworn in.
Sharon Harrison, ARRISO. And Jeff.
Speak into the mic, please. So the
408 North Mansfield.
Raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give is the matter with
Yes.
Mrs. Harrison, you live adjoining Dr. Reverse's property?
Yes, we do.
Now, showing you a picture that the board has of the pool house. Where do you live in relation to that pool house?
Our house, our yard adjoins that pool house.
So you're directly on the back side of the pool house?
Correct.
You understand the application that's being made here tonight?
I do.
You understand that Dr. Reversa wants to put a deck he and his wife can sit on?
I do.
On top of the building?
Yes.
What's your opinion of that?
I have no objection. The reason to me is it's going to be an actual lower profile or lower volume building than what currently exists.
You're not concerned about your privacy there?
No, we had our bedroom built so that our windows are not situated directly in the middle of the room, so we took care of that when we built our bedroom, we feel.
Any questions?
Another issue is we just raised our house because it's sandy, so our residence is up 5 feet. You know, we're 5 feet higher up in the air. And we think it would be, quite frankly, an asset to the neighborhood if you guys approve it.
Okay.
Board have any questions on that? Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Public portion is closed. Does the board have any comments? I have a comment. When we give you a variance or anyone a variance, we're not giving it to the taxpayer, we're giving it to the property. Our job is to protect the properties. Our job is to protect the neighbors' properties. You could move, your neighbors could move, different neighbors could come in, different kids could come in your house. I see a terrible application here. I don't know who led you to believe that you would get a variance here. I would be shocked. To have a elevated deck right on your property lines like that, when it would have been a 16 feet back if it was attached to your house. I feel we need to protect the neighbors' properties from that. So that's my comment. Would you like to read the motion? No.
Do we have to make a determination first if this is actually part of the principal structure?
That was going to be my question to our board planner, because I don't know really how to frame the variances unless we make that determination. So I guess from the testimony, did we get any enlightenment from that as to what it would be at this point in time?
According to the definition that Roger read.
Well, I'm relying on Roger at this point in time. I mean, I know how to read the definitions, but...
The definition is clear to me that it becomes part of the structure. They are connected.
Okay.
The deck is acting as a roof. The roof is defined in the definition. I mean, it's...
So in that instance, we don't really know the coverage issues either, which you asterisked in your report.
I ballparked the coverage issues, and I think they would comply with the coverage, even with the additional area.
Okay, so less than a 31%, that is...
I believe that would be truthful, yes.
So we would need a variance for that. But we're still looking at a
No,
variance.
you wouldn't need a variance for the coverage.
We would not?
Would not.
That's what I said, we would not, sorry. And so this accessory structure issues, do they disappear because now it's connected?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
But now you have principal building setback issues and deck.
Yeah, I mean, we have side yard issues, combined side yard, rear yard issues, right? Like your report says. But then down the bottom of page 2 of your report would be the accessory structure for height and area. That would disappear because of the connection.
If it's part of the principal structure, it's not an accessory structure.
Right. Okay. All right.
Roof pitch remains either way.
What roof length?
Roof pitch variance is remaining in any instance.
Okay, so the roof pitch is what, it's supposed to be what, 5/12 and what it's...
512, yes.
And it's going to, they need a variance or that...
They need a variance for that.
Okay.
To make it flat.
I got you.
Stan, before we move on, just so it's clear of our application of the definition, are we saying that it's attached in a substantial manner by the wall? Is that correct? 'Cause it's not a roof. Because there is no roof, correct?
There is no wall connecting.
There are no walls or roofs.
That's why I don't think it is.
You don't think the deck is acting as a roof?
The deck itself is acting as a roof, but it is only a roof over the accessory structure. There's a open-air causeway below that that separates the garage walls from the perimeter building.
I say the deck is acting as a roof.
I don't mean to sway it, or certainly there's other variances. I just want to see where
Well, either way, I
we're
mean, there's a
applying
bunch
it.
of variances. I mean,
Okay. Well, we've determined that our board's determined what it is through our engineer's testimony, so that's what we're going to phrase it as. Obviously, if they don't agree and it's voted for and they have a problem with it, you have your relief at that point in time as an applicant to file whatever legal items can be filed at that point in time for an appeal. So at this point in time, just to be clear, we're going to vote on the variances for the minimum side yard. Required is 10 feet, proposed is 2.9 feet. Combined side yard requirement's 22 feet, proposed is 13.8 feet. Rear yard required 16 feet. The existing is 20.1 feet, and the new proposed is going to be 3 feet. Building coverage, we've determined that's not going to be a variance. We're going to eliminate the issue concerning accessory structure variances at this point. The conditions that I saw were, and one thing is that I want, and I know the board feels this way, is that the application really isn't even complete at this point in time. So the board, based on my advice, we have allowed the fact that you don't have a survey.
Well, actually, we do, but we got the review after we submitted 3 weeks ago. Yesterday, we get fax to us that there was not a copy of the...
Yeah, but that's on the directions. It's not, it's up to the applicant to read the directions.
There was a survey in there, so we know.
There's not complying with the actual directions. So, I mean, a lot of people can submit copies of things, but that's not what the directions say. But anyway, regardless of that, the board is...
Normally, I would find if somebody would say the application's incomplete, we could always put it off.
No, I understand that, but instead of saying that at this late hour because you weren't notified, I think it's only fair that we made a condition that you have to supply that. So that's something that the board was willing to do. There'll also be, my understanding is the condition will be that there'll be landscaping or trees or whatever height is needed on the side that you're getting the 2.9-foot setback, and all the other conditions that are in our engineer's report that weren't modified herein. So that'll be the motion for approval with conditions at this point. So if we could have a motion. Sure, G.
I have one question for Raj. If he came in just for a second floor deck, would he still need a variance? If he came in for a second floor deck in the rear of his property, would he still need a variance?
If it complies with the setbacks, he'd be fine.
Okay. I just wanted to know. Okay.
I just also want to point out in the variance checklist, which is in the ordinance, item number 1A, copy of an area map showing all lots within 200 feet of the property, not included. Item number C, copy of professional survey at a scale not smaller than 1 inch equals 100 feet, nor larger than 1/8 of an inch equals 1 foot, not included. As a consideration to the applicant, I've met with Dr. Aversa several times, we requested a survey be submitted by tonight, and it wasn't. I understand that the report was not on the 24th, but it's on the checklist.
It doesn't matter. We allowed it. Right. It's not, it doesn't matter.
Are we waiting for a motion?
Yes. Yep. Go
I have
ahead.
one question. Roger, could you go over the other variances that aren't on here, that you think belong on here? You said there was 9, I'm coming up with 5, but you have 9.
Well, we already decided that it's considered a principal structure, so the variances of the accessory structures go away now.
Okay.
So you need setbacks for the building and a deck. It's like duplicate.
All right, so someone make a motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Tom Collins?
This is a little bit of a difficult case. Unfortunately, Dr. Aversa bought a house in 2000 that had its garage illegally converted. I went through all the building records today, and there's no approvals or board approvals for converting the garage. It's not his fault, trying to then add to this and put all these variances and the setbacks on top of it, I just don't see where they meet any of the C1 conditions for demonstrating hardship or why we would do this. I don't see any positive impacts to the neighborhood. I don't see us setting a positive feeling going forward for the citizens of Margate if we allow things like this. So I couldn't vote for it. I have to vote no.
Clem Orzesky?
Well, I'll pass over the fact that, in my opinion, this is an illegal set of drawings according to the laws of the state of New Jersey. If I was a neighbor anywhere adjacent to this property, I would be up in arms about this proposal. There's no real need to get into details on each item, but we're a planning board, and a second-level deck 3 feet off 2 property lines is just plain bad planning. I vote no.
Mike Richmond?
Yeah, we grant variances for relief from a hardship, like the 2 previous cases, undersized lots, being forced to put your driveway off a street so it doesn't go on Ventnor Avenue, et cetera. So I see other options here rather than putting the deck on top of the garage. I agree with Mr. Collins. I don't see any reason to grant this, so I'm going to vote no.
Jim Galantino?
It's a tough application. I would rather like to see a survey. Wish you would pull the case and come back and bring a survey and try to work it out. At this point, it's incomplete. I have to vote no.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I also do not see a hardship. I would like to see a survey as well, to see if we could maybe work it out for them. Like Mr. Patterson said, it's not about the neighbors so much as the property that we're looking at, because people buy and sell properties all the time. I know we have one neighbor that was okay with it. There is another neighbor that's also within 3 feet. I have to vote not in favor of the application.
Mike Cristaldi?
As the other board members, and I mean, you pointed out those other ones in town, they were mistakes too, of being so close to a property line. I see no positive from this whatsoever. I vote no.
Mr. Patterson?
I agree with the rest of the board. I just feel that the applicant was ill-advised to bring this before the board. I don't think there was a chance that it would be approved having a elevated deck that close to a property line. I vote no.
The application does not pass. The vote is 0-7.
We have a 5-minute break, please. Next case is John Sparta, 103 North Madison Avenue, Block 329, Lot 48, in the multifamily district, to grant a C variance for rear yard setback, side yard setback, combined side yard setback, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. McLaren?
Thank you, Board Chairman, board members. Our report is dated October 26, 2016. Background: the applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to demolish an existing dwelling and construct a new 6-bedroom, 2.5-story single-family dwelling in the multifamily zone. Schedule B1 was used to determine the bulk variances. As indicated by the chart, the S30 zone was used to determine the proper setbacks, coverages where applicable. The area of the S30 zone resembles the area of the property in question. Variances required. Side yard setback, right side, whereas 10-foot minimum is required for lot widths greater than 60 feet and 8 feet is proposed. Side yard setback, left side, whereas 10 feet minimum is required for lot widths greater than 60 feet and 8 feet is proposed. Side yard setback combined, whereas 22 feet is required for lot widths greater than 60 feet and 16 feet is proposed. Waivers requested, not applicable. Comments. In a multifamily zone where a single-family dwelling is proposed, the prevailing zoning chart is for a single-family dwelling where one is proposed. This would make the undersized lot for MF zone an existing non-conforming issue. The size is compliant with the single-family S30 zone requirements which are being applied. A grass planting strip shall be installed. Street trees will be planted behind the sidewalk where more room is available and there is no overhead utility conflict. The project takes advantage of the additional allowable height limit to provide parking and storage below the building, creating more usable parking spaces and increasing landscape areas. Consideration should be given to remove grass between the wheel runs and infill with pavers. If cars are covering the grass strip, it will die. You have to move the car to maintain the grass and may discourage use of the driveway. Architectural plans have the incorrect block listed, minor detail. Recommendations. The variances being sought require testimony from the applicant to satisfy C1 and C2 criteria where appropriate. If the board finds that the testimony provided provides evidence that supports the variances, then I would recommend the below recommendations, if not done already, be a condition of approval. All lot grading shall direct water runoff towards the street. The shower is required to have some sort of drainage and should be shown on the plans. A grass planting strip shall be installed. The planting strip, if not wide enough to support the street trees, the trees shall be planted behind the sidewalk. Revised plans may be required.
Thank you, Mr. McLaren. Members of the board, my name is Chris Palins, and I represent John Sparta for his application for 103 North Madison Avenue, Lot 48, Block 329, in the multifamily zone, where we apply the S30 criteria because it's a single-family home. We would not be here if this ill-advised subdivision had not been granted 40 or 50 years ago. As you guys can see the configuration of the property, it's a 50 by 62-foot wide lot. This is 50 by 62.5 lot.
Chris, take the mic with you.
It's switched. 50 foot is the depth, and the 62.5 is the width. Which is unusual because typically we had the 50 feet along the front and the 62.5 deep. Now, it's a conforming lot in the S30 zoning district, but the 50-foot depth kind of restricts you with respect to your side yard setbacks, because what it does when you have 62.5 feet across the front, although your lot's only 3,000 some square feet, you're at that 22-foot combined side yard setback, 11 foot on each side in order to conform. With this application, we are requesting a variance for the combined side yard setback so we can show 8 foot on each side versus 10-foot minimum. The 10-foot minimum is simply because I'll say the irregular configuration of the lot, and the combined side yard of 22 feet, which I just think is, I don't think is onerous for property in that zone, for property in this shape, size, and configuration. I don't think the 22-foot combined side yard was intended for a lot that's 3,250 square feet. That having been said, John, who is a year-round resident He lives up the street right now in Madison in a condo. He's going to build this house and live there himself year-round. It is not a rental. He picked up this lot about, what did you say, John, 10 years ago? You had this property for about 10 years?
Yes, no.
It says
25.
Well, he owned the property for 25 years, been a year-round resident for 10 years, I apologize. And the only variances with the application are the side yards. With that, Steve, you want to be sworn and give testimony with
Stephen Fenwick? Yes, I do.
Board accept Mr. Fenwick's credentials?
Yes. Thank you.
Steve, you can take that microphone and I'll come over.
Okay.
Steve, you preparing the plan that's been submitted to the board for their consideration?
Yes.
Would you be kind enough to take the board through the project as to what Mr. Spartan came to you and asked for, and how we ended up with the design that's in front of the board now?
Yes. Well, there's a small single-story house there now that doesn't meet the flood elevation, and Mr. Sparta wanted to build a new home that was above the street. The street's pretty low there, and he wanted to have kind of an apartment for himself with a living, dining, kitchen, and then he wanted some more space for his kids to come and visit. And he wanted a new house that met all the codes and standards. And when we looked at the lot, we ran into the concern that Chris mentioned about the width versus the depth on the lot. So we designed a house that meets all the height, and it's within the FAR requirements. It exceeds the landscaping coverage requirements. So the bulk of the house is within what the zone calls for. But in the way I understand it, the way the side yard setbacks are kind of promulgated in the zoning of Margate is based on the lot width. So if we were in a narrower width lot, I think our setbacks would have been 5 and 5 or 8 and 8, I don't know. We did 8 and 8. We improved the front yard from the existing house where the porch extends out further. The question of the landscaping that came up in Mr. McLaren's report, it's maybe worth talking about. We did show 2 trees out in what you'd call the landscape strip. Mr. Sparta's happy to remove that concrete and plant grass there. And if you go down to the corner, they've done that already, so it would complement. I have a picture of it if the board wants to see it.
They're going to continue that curb strip of trees?
Mr. Sparta's happy to do that. So just pass this around? Okay. So it's looking towards the corner, and I'm talking about those trees in that grassy strip. So we were happy to do that at Mr. McLaren's request in his report. The other one is a little more complicated for me, and Chris may be with it. There's also the suggestion that we cover the grass between the driveway paved areas, the wheeled paved areas.
That is complicated, Steve. I can handle it.
Yeah, it changes the landscape coverage.
Roger mentioned that those grass strips may not live in the driveway. There's no problem putting pavers in there consistent with the rest of the driveway. I think that kicks in a coverage variance. If the board, we'll do it either way. Whatever the board's preference is not a problem. And the other part of that testimony was no problem with the curb strip. We'll put the trees in the curb strip unless you guys tell us otherwise. Do whatever you want.
I should also mention that the property towards the bay, it has a 5-foot setback, and the property towards the ocean has a driveway, so there's quite a lot of light and air on the ocean side.
I just want to clarify something for the board.
Yes.
if you cover up those grass strips in the driveway, you're way over on the entire property. So the variance would just be a little bit over for the front yard, but your total landscaping is still way over. So I just wanted to clarify that for the board.
Happy to do it.
And the street trees, if, you can put them in the, you can put them in the thing if you want. He's saying if you don't want to do that, put them behind the sidewalk.
Okay, we have that option then as a condition?
Why don't we just do it?
Yes. The concern is the planting strips looks like it's pretty darn narrow.
Right, did you see the picture coming around right there? Yeah, it's narrow, but...
We can do it either way.
Either way, okay. Okay.
Steve, do you see any detriment or any adverse impact on the zone plan or the zoning ordinance if the board were to allow 8-foot setbacks on each side instead of 10-foot, in light of the fact that there is a two-family structure to the left with a conforming setback and a condominium building to the right with a double drive behind it and a flag lot driveway to the side of it? Do you think these two 8-foot setbacks are a problem?
No, not at all. I think it fits in with the zone and the surrounding structures. I think it's an enhancement, and it meets the height and the FAR of the zone. So it's just this anomaly of the width and the depth of the lot that throw us into this side yard setback.
And the height that we are seeking from grade, the first floor for parking, I see on the plan it's about 7 feet, really, that's the minimum we can do.
Yeah.
And still get a garage door in there?
That's correct. You'd have to have a special garage door, yes.
So we're not pushing that to a limit that's unnecessary?
No, absolutely not. 7 feet, no.
Oh, that's all I have.
Just on that driveway thing again, not to be cemented, to be pavers. Yeah. If you, yes.
All of it pavers or just the infill?
Where the grass strip would be.
Okay, okay. No worries, okay.
Any questions from the board? Are you raising your hand, ma'am? Anything else, Chris?
No, sir.
Anyone here from the public like to say anything? Public portion is closed. Any other comments from the board? Would you read the motion?
Motions for C variance relief for minimum side yard setback on the left and right side, required on both sides is 10 feet, proposed is 8 feet, combined, also for combined side yard setback, required is 22 feet, proposed is 16 feet, with conditions that, let me get this straight, and if I'm wrong, let me know. There'll be trees, at the option of the applicant, there'll be trees placed either in front or behind the right-of-way sidewalk. And the other condition is that there'll be pavers in the driveway in lieu of the grass strips as proposed.
Which creates a variance.
Right. Okay, so...
For front yard.
Okay, so we're going to get a front yard landscape variance. Do we have any idea, like, the extent of it? Thanks.
Front yard landscape variance only to the extent of the paver strips?
Yes.
Yes.
Grass strips shown on the
Yes.
plan?
So whatever that measure.
It's like 72 square feet of additional.
But what's that do for what percentage? 60%, it's now 52%, 58?
Not to calculate the front yard.
Leave it limited to the strips?
Yeah.
Per the calculation of whatever the calculation is with the addition of the grass strips being replaced by pavers, okay. And that would be the motion and the conditions set forth.
I hear a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, Tom Collins?
Either old guy, what's the difference? Again, another unusual property on Madison Avenue. It seems like we're getting a lot of activity down here. Looking at the existing property and the proposed property and the improvements to the neighborhood, I don't see any negative impacts by what's being proposed
Can you
here.
point the, I can't hear you, Tom. Can you point the mic towards your...
I have it right on.
right,
I don't
thanks.
see any negative impacts by what's being proposed here. I think the positive aspects I'd like to hand Mr. Sparta and Mr. Fenwick here a compliment. This is probably one of the best nicely designed homes. You're not putting so much bulk and mass and creeping in the third floors and killing the property. It's really nice and it's pretty, and I think it's going to really improve the neighborhood. I'm glad to see you're going to live in it year-round. I don't see anything negative in any regard as far as anything to the neighborhood, so I vote in favor.
Clem Wozleski?
50 is proposed.
I think, in context with the overall development, that the 8-foot side yards are perfectly adequate for this project, and they fit in well with the neighborhood. And I think it's also nice to see a building that's not all cluttered up with a lot of architectural, historic details. I approve the project.
Mike Richmond?
Yeah, I don't see any detriment to the 8-foot setbacks, side yard setbacks, and I also think that it's a big improvement over what's there now, so I'm going to approve it.
Jim Galantino?
I'm glad to see a property developed down in Madison Avenue that's not a duplex or a quadplex or a sixplex. I think it's motivated to see single-family houses down there being elevated, and I don't see a detriment. I see a lot of positives. I vote yes.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I agree with the comments of the other board members. I don't see an adverse effect. I think it fits in well with the current neighborhood zone, and I vote in favor.
Mike Cristaldi?
As the rest of the board members, I vote yes.
Rich Patterson?
I also concur with what the board members voted. I vote yes.
Application passes 7-0.
Make a motion, we close the meeting?
Next case is what the hell is it? Mark Victor, 23 North Claremont Avenue, Block 204.01, Lot 39, in the S25 district, to grant C variance for front yard setback to porch, building height, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. McLarnon? Yes. Michael Cristaldi's recusing himself.
Thank you, Board Chairman and Board members. My report is dated October 26th. Background: the applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to construct a new house that would exceed permitted building height, total side yard setbacks, and front yard setbacks to porch as indicated. The location is at the Atlantic City side of North Claremont Avenue, near Oak Grove Avenue. The dwelling will replace a dwelling that is non-compliant in regard to bulk standards and flood elevation. Section 3, variance is required. Front yard setbacks to the porch, whereas 5.9 feet is calculated and 5.2 feet is proposed. Side yard setbacks combined, whereas 17.47 feet is calculated combined and 15 feet is proposed. Building height, C variance, whereas 28 feet above BFE plus freeboard is required maximum and 29 feet is proposed. No waivers have been requested. Section 5, comments. The extra foot of height appears to be driven by the desire to have a 9-foot high ceiling on the first floor. The survey or site plan does not provide any existing or proposed topographic information. The reason I throw that in there, sometimes when they throw the topographic information, it shows you some contrast of how high the first floor is based on the grade. The applicant shall provide testimony in regard to how opening the side door will be accomplished with a parked vehicle occupying the space. Applicant shall provide testimony why a shower stall is needed for the first floor when there are not any bedrooms. Applicant shall provide testimony on how the shed doors will operate with the car parked in the required parking space. Roof runoff from any structure must be maintained on the property. The lot shall be graded from the rear to the street. No fencing is being proposed. The plans indicate a variance is required for building coverage, but a variance is not required. For variance relief and waiver relief, the following pertains. Recommendations. The variances being sought require testimony from the applicant to satisfy C1 and C2 criteria where appropriate. If the board finds that the testimony provided provides evidence that supports the variances, then I would recommend the below recommendations, if not already done, be a condition of approval. The gas meter shall not be located on the side where the driveway is located. The street trees shall be located within the grass planting strip as it appears. There are not any overhead utility conflicts, and the strip is wide enough to accommodate the trees. The condition of approval, any approval, shall be on the applicant receiving all required permits. Just want to mention why I mentioned the gas meter is there's not enough space along the side where the driveways are being installed, and they put a gas meter on there with bollards. It reduces the width of the driveway, and it renders it useless. I'm trying to prevent that ahead of time instead of rejecting them at the CO inspection time. It's not fun.
Is it a safety issue having it extended in the driveway if a car hit the meter?
Hence why they put yeah, it is a safety issue.
That's why we're moving it. That's the reason.
That's why they put the bollards in there, so you hit the bollard instead of the meter, but like I said, it shortens the width of the driveway, renders it useless.
Well, I know the gas company along these conversions is putting them in driveways, so
yes,
it's a bad thing.
Thank you, Mr. Clay, members of the board. Chris Balinson for Mr. Victor with respect to his property on Claremont Avenue for variance relief for left side yard setback, building height of 1 foot, and several inches for the front porch. The setback variances are driven, and I'll try to show you, are driven by the turn right there at Claremont Avenue. Mark can get into the specifics. Thanks. Property right here? Okay. Mark can get into the numbers, but the front yard setback to the porch is for the front corner of the porch, essentially at this location here. Am I correct, Mark? Okay. And then the side yard setback to the principal structure on that side also is for this corner here and for this corner here. Everything beyond that meets the side yard setback control.
Where's Claremont Avenue? Front, bottom, or side?
Bottom.
Okay.
And what happens is with that trapezoidal lot, we have to put the driveway on the straight side. Otherwise, if you run the driveway up this side, you lose a bunch of space between the driveway and the house. So it just makes more sense to put it on the side where you can put a straight driveway, and that forces the house to the location of the lot, creating the setback variances. The height is 12 inches. It gives, I think, a minimal ceiling height on the third floor and is within what we believe the board is considering.
Well, it's not unless he changes the roof pitch, and I don't need to say that again.
Based on the first application, the eave height will be lowered as recommended, and the pitch will change to accommodate the lower.
Well, he's shaking his head no. You're not doing that?
No. What I did is that when I discussed it with him, he was more into the 6 feet in the room, 6 foot plus in the room. It's not outside. So if we have to lower the plate height to 6 feet, we'll keep the 28 feet for the building height.
I didn't get that either.
I'm sworn.
No, you're not. You're sworn in from an hour, 2 hours ago.
That's okay. It's Mark Zawacki.
Could you raise your hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give this matter will be changed?
Oh, you're not staying, you're dropping to 28, so you're eliminating the variance.
We're eliminating the height
We find that
variance.
acceptable.
From what I understand, the variance for the height has been eliminated from the application, conditioned upon lowering the eave height, if that's permitted by the board, lowering the eave height 12 inches, pitch will stay 512, and will stay at 28, and will stay at 28 feet as required. Is that correct, Mark?
That's correct.
What does that mean, lowering the eave height?
I don't think that height is...
For you. Here.
Well, actually, you're dropping this down, which lowers that.
Okay.
Mark, would you show the board what it means to drop the eave height 12 inches and maintain the fence?
Okay, what we're going to do is, we have a 6'5", so that's going to go down to 6 foot, so we can conform to the 28 feet.
Fine, okay.
Okay? And that's where we're going to be at 28.
So you'll have the 512 pitch, and it'll be 28 feet high.
Right.
Okay, then we don't need to discuss it, there's no difference.
Exactly. Like I said, he was more interested in getting the space.
Side yard setbacks, I categorize them as stepping off the corner of the building. To show the board what more specifically what I'm talking about.
Well, because of the trapezoidal angle side, this side takes a jagged edge, so 5 foot is actually hitting the corners, whereas these areas here do fall within the setback.
What do you think the square footage is that's in violation? 3 feet, 5 feet total?
I would say you'd be lucky if it's 5 to 6.
Okay.
Let's say
Between
6
all three
feet.
of them?
Yeah, well, let's say 6
Okay.
feet.
And the same goes for the front porch, the front porch?
Right, the front porch, we're asking for 8 inches, and once again, it's to get a 6-foot deck, so it becomes a usable deck.
And Mark, there is a driveway to the left on the variance side.
Yes, there is you can see it on this picture. The adjacent property driveway is right here, and there's a single garage structure located to that side.
Would you kindly show us where the shed doors would work? You might have on top of the driveway where they are swing out.
No, you'd have to move the car to get into the shed. If there was 3 cars in there, then you'd have to back the car out or back them up, because most cars don't take up 19 feet. You'd have to pull the cars back to be able to open up two 2-6 doors. So we're talking about a 2-6 encroachment. And the other door from the driveway is strictly a door for service for the mechanicals.
Unless the board would like to hear any additional testimony with respect to any of those items, that I conclude direct testimony.
One question, that the corner of the front porch, you're saying is into the front setback? It looks like it's into the side setback.
Conceivably, would be both, I think.
Well, the 7 feet would go across into the porch.
You're right, it's a side yard for the front porch.
Okay, so you don't have a front setback.
As far as,
I thought the first variance was a front. Right there, yeah.
This one is just for the front porch. Now, I do have,
So it's a front yard.
Side yard variance or front?
That's a front yard.
it's a front yard for the porch and a side yard.
Again, I see it.
Right, that's 2. And we deleted the height variance.
just a quick question, since answering the one question about the shed, where they're going to have to move their cars to get into the shed, why wouldn't you design the doors so they open into the yard?
Well, I was just figuring bicycles and things like that. It's easier just to, I was figuring for bicycle storage and that type of thing, where they would ride their bike, put it in storage, and...
It's only grass.
The doors can be relocated. If you think that's an issue, we can relocate the doors to the side.
I would think so, because it's blocking parking.
Can we let the client make that decision?
I don't see it as a problem. We can, if you see, Roger, as a problem, we can relocate the doors to the side instead of encroaching 2'6" into the parking.
If there are 3 19-foot cars in the driveway at the same
That's
time.
what Rich and I were just talking about, the car's going
Yes, you might have to move the car to get that 2'6" door open.
And I said move the doors just to the yard, to the grass yard.
Yeah, he was saying relocate the doors to the side.
You don't want to see the side with the shed.
Right, when you look up the shed, you'll see,
I think it's more attractive with the open doors there, because it just more aesthetically pleasing?
This 320-foot door in the driveway is not high.
Well, most cars are probably maybe 14.
I hope not, the spaces are only 18 feet.
Only those big Cadillacs.
I just raised the question, I just wanted to hear, I think it's okay.
Good, we're golden.
You sure? Clem, you have anything? Do you have anything? Well, then turn off your mic. Is anyone here from the public who would like to comment? Please come forward and be sworn in. Speak into the mic, please. Please speak into the mic.
23 North Delavan. I do. Thank you. I'm a neighbor. I live about a block away between my house and the house that's the subject of this application. There is a lot where there's currently one new home. It was a single lot that had a 3-bedroom home. There are now 2 homes being developed on that lot. It was subdivided. And my understanding is that in lieu of the 3-bedroom home that was there, we're going to end up with 2 5-bedroom homes behind us. Directly across from us on North Delavan, a subdivision was recently approved. There's currently a 4-bedroom home, and that lot was approved for subdivision with variances to improve it with a 5-bedroom home and a 4-bedroom home. The home that we are discussing this evening, my understanding, is also going to be a 5-bedroom home. I don't know how large it is now, but I believe it may be 3 bedrooms, but I'm not sure, but it will be 5. So the number of bedrooms in the immediate area of where we live is going to very dramatically increase over the next few years. And so my concern is really not with regard to the side yard variances that are being sought today, but I wanted to make sure that in fact the parking spaces were being provided as required for this home, that they're usable parking spaces so they really can be used, because I'm concerned that as the neighborhood continues to evolve, and they're all great developments, and we're happy to see people investing in the neighborhood, but we are looking at parking issues. In addition, on our street, on North Delavan, there are a number of the lots are small, undersized lots. There are some oversized lots, but those oversized lots have duplexes on them, one of which has no
Mike. No. Please, go ahead, continue. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I apologize on Mr. Castoli's behalf.
No problem. So the oversized lots on our block are duplexes, at least one of which has no off-street parking. So parking is at a real commodity, and I just wanted to express my concern to make sure that we really have viable, usable parking spaces for this house.
Anything built has to meet the parking requirements, but your point is well taken, because if there's 3 cars, are they really all going to park in the driveway? Unfortunately, this board has no control over that. We can only make sure that they have adequate off-street parking. But if we can come up with some way of making that better, I wish we could. Maybe we will. But we also feel the same way about that parking, is people are putting in parking as required and then parking on the street. I don't know what to do about that, but it's a valid concern.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that, as long as it complies with the code, I certainly understand that.
Rarely, other than a commercial district where there's just no parking available, rarely do we give a parking variance.
Yeah, I did, when I saw the comment in your review, Mr. McLernan's comment with regard to the shed, I did personally think that it was a better idea to have the shed doors turned, because I think that it's highly unlikely that somebody, if they're riding their bikes in the morning, they're not going to move their car to get in and out of the shed with their bikes. And so I think that as a practical matter, it may encourage somebody to use that space. They may well not use it in any event, but I think that it does make it a more readily available space if the doors aren't opening into this parking spot.
I think maybe we're lazier than that. I think what's going to happen is the bikes are going to go in the backyard. In reality, is that moving 3 cars?
I have a comment. Couldn't you use a sliding door that slides across either way? I mean, you know, just that way you don't have to move cars, you slide it across.
There's a sliding door in there, but it only operates one side.
Right,
So it's better to have
both
double-
doors can open,
right,
correct? Well, you would cut that in half, and you may be trying to get big things in there. Yeah.
We prefer to leave the application the way it is, the shed location the way it is.
Go ahead.
And I appreciate it. Obviously, we'd prefer to have the parking available because of the problem in the neighborhood. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Anyone else in the public wish to speak? Public portion is closed. You have anything else, Mr. Bailison?
No, the only remaining variances are the side yard and the front and side for the porch. The height's been eliminated, and that is the sum and substance of the application.
Any other comments from the board? You read the motion, please.
The application is for 23 North Claremont Avenue. It requires C variances. My understanding is that there's a side yard setback because of the porch. If you're facing from Claremont, it's the left side. Requirement's 5.4 feet. Proposal is 5.2 feet. Also, there's a combined side variance is required 17.47 feet. Proposed is 15 feet. I did not see any conditions except for those conditions as listed in Mr. McLarnin's report, which Mr. Bailison agrees to, I believe. So that will be the motion and the conditions.
Hear a motion? Second?
Tom Collins?
You know, it's quite interesting. I really appreciate the comments that you made about the neighborhood and the parking. When the Delavan Avenue or Douglas Avenue case came up, I was one of the only votes that voted not to subdivide that property for a 4- and 5-bedroom house. I think that we should start getting worried with our city because we're going to go the same route as Ocean City or Atlantic City, where you get so many overbuilt homes and then nobody fills them and they become rooming houses. I don't think that'll ever happen in Margate, but, and parking is an issue, and you're going to have 3 spaces on that street in the summertime. Nobody moves their car on the weekend, because if you do, you won't get a parking space. It's ridiculous. This actual project, I don't want to oppose it. I think that the variances here are minor. I would like to see the house smaller, but I can't control the number of bedrooms, and we can control the parking, but not the bedrooms and what's happening in the house. So unfortunately, I would vote to approve this application, but I think you really hit the nail on the head with your comments, so.
You vote what?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Mr. Wozleski?
The side yard setback variance requirements are caused by the unusual shape of the lot, which is a recognized condition under the state land use regulations. So I think it's reasonable with those considerations to approve it. I vote for it.
Mr. Richmond?
Yeah, I think again, I agree with Clem, the unusual lot configuration is kind of driving the variances, so I'm going to approve it.
Mr. Galantino?
The variance was removed, and all we had is this front yard and side yard setbacks. I don't see any negative impact. I think this is a good application. I approve.
Ms. Gubernalty?
I agree with Clem as well. Setbacks are driven by the turn on Claremont Avenue. I think they're minor, and I approve of the application.
Mr. Carter?
I agree with the application.
Can't hear you, Dave.
Turn it on. I agree with the application. With the variances, and I understand the the odd lot, and I think the house is a nice-looking house.
Mr. Patterson?
For the aforementioned reasons, I also vote yes.
Application passes 7-0. Chris, please come sign.
Any other business? Roger? John?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
We're not done yet. We haven't taken a motion yet. Any other business? I forget, but we were.
Should have wrote it down. Is that good?
We can't remember what the other business is. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
We got it, Tom.
Jim, second. Motion, all in favor? Aye, we're adjourned.